Does the series finale of Barry from HBO live up to everything that came before it? Plus, we'll talk about the themes and absurdist comedy of I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson on Netflix.
Alabama Take Projection.
Hello, thanks for tuning in to Taking It Down, the TV and streaming podcast from the Alabama Take, where we prompt conversations for thoughtful, busy TV devotees, all from us, your irreverent outsiders. I'm Blaine Duncan. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Alabama Take. I always could not help dissecting why I like what I like and why I dislike what I dislike when it comes to TV, movies, and more. I have an English degree and a side hustle as an English teacher, so I'll try my best to offer insight that you can use for conversation with others, or even with us, or even just to think about. Luckily, my ideas aren't the only set of viewpoints on this podcast each week, as with me are the other host. Adam Morrow's an erudite traveling and studio musician with a penchant for fine literature. Donovan Ronwald is a media specialist with encyclopedic knowledge on film, television, and more. And Natalie Morrow, she's the first person to ask about fantasy, sci-fi, comics, trashy reality TV, and she's a huge Beyonce fan. From us, you'll get the obvious, but you'll get the obscure. We are here for the TV and streaming obsessed who are just too busy for anything more than the show or movie itself. We'll give the outside of Hollywood analysis, and like a lot of the Alabama Take productions, it'll come with zero Southern stereotype. The hosts I mentioned at the top of the show are out of pocket due to weird scheduling and work things involved with me and them. I won't bore anybody with that. Instead, I'll give Alabama Take writer, staffer Ty Edmondson a chance to say hello. Fan favorite Ty Edmondson, believe it or not.
That's what everyone's saying.
Well, did I not tell you about one of the recent times that you were on that we got a review shortly after?
Was it the beef one?
Yeah, it was the beef.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That was a great episode.
I mentioned this in passing. It's from an Apple podcast review. It says, "Love the nuance of this discussion. Always good to listen to after watching something so intense. Thanks for helping me unpack the series," with a smiley face. I don't know who this is. I mean, this.
Yeah.
From what
It's very kind though.
I think it's this. It's a same person who commented on the AlabamaTake.com post for this, which is our production site and company, because very similar discussion I had with this person. I don't know, whoever you are, thank you. If you want to comment on a show, go to the AlabamaTake.com and just drop a comment, and I will probably respond. Maybe I can tell Ty to go and look at it too. But you can also leave a comment, or this is a review technically, on Apple. Just pull up the show, scroll all the way to the bottom. It says ratings and reviews, and you can do just stars, or you can write up a little review or comment. Just say what you liked if you want. If you didn't like anything, then don't bother. Mm-hmm. Don't waste your time.
Why are you watching if you don't like it?
Ty, you and I and Donovan, one of the hosts of the show, love the show, HBO show, Barry. It ended not only its season, but its entire series recently.
Yes.
And we're here to discuss, at least this last season, the fourth season. Everyone just know going forward, we're up until the break, we'll be spoiling Barry, probably as a whole. But we both highly recommend it, if not for its comedy, but also for its depth, I would think.
And its performances. That's a huge draw for me as well.
Yeah. So we recommend it. Spoilers going forward up until the break. So just check your timestamps. Let's dive in. What do you got? We'll do general, broad strokes.
Okay. Yeah, we can do that. This season overall, I felt was very encompassing of like how I expected the show to end, if that makes sense. Not saying that the ending was expected or obvious, but I felt like the way that Bill Hader wrote this last season, this was like the final way that I see the show ending. I don't see that. I can't see the show ending any other way than the way that it has. Basically, everything that these characters have done over the entire series just all culminates into this last action-packed season, with almost every episode progressing the plot forward in major leaps, sometimes too many leaps at once. The whole season was great, in my opinion, much darker, than other seasons, with still the hint of classic Barry comedy that you get throughout every episode, and it's always great. But I think everything that had to do with every subplot, including like Gene and Barry and Cristobal and everything that happened with Hank, was all pulled off very perfectly, and I think it was a great ending to a show that held a lot of depth up until like the last episode.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. That's exactly how I felt. There were surprises because you never can 100% predict what's going to happen usually, but nothing was jarring. It all felt of a piece. It all felt like you said. It was a logical next step. It's funny. Shayla Murray is a big Barry fan.
Oh,
Did you know that?
I did not know that. No.
Well, shout out Senora Murray. She's
That's very funny. I wish I would have talked to her about that during the
No,
school
she
year.
loves it. And she always
Wow.
she always wanted to talk to me about it. She asked me right before work ended, what do you think's going to happen with the finale of Barry? And I shrugged and I said, a lot of death.
Yeah, and
there you go.
yeah, that's all we'll say for that right now. But
Everyone died or ended up in jail, almost,
Yeah.
sort of. Let's get into this final episode, because you and I have talked about, and Donovan as well, our other host, talks about Barry quite a bit throughout this final season. Go ahead and tell me what you thought of the finale, just that episode alone.
so I thought the finale is the best directed episode of the series, in my opinion. Specifically, like how when we talked about the episode of Time Jump and everything, how I broke down kind of some of the cinematography in that. I feel like instead of it being very complex, the directing and cinematography was like strict and to the point, and it knew exactly what it was doing, and it didn't play any games. Like a lot of time, like, am I allowed to get into spoilers? Is that allowed now?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we're going to spoil
Perfect.
everything about Barry, so people should know that.
Yeah. So the way that Hank died and his like the final shot of him being his hand on Cristobal's statue is just such a powerful like shot as a whole. Not only for like it's adorable because like they're joining again and they're like essentially together like after all, but I felt like it was a way to kind of, and one thing that I thought was compelling is I watched this ending with my family because we watched this whole last season together because they also love it, and they were kind of sad that Hank died, as you should be because he's a great character, but they kind of felt a little slighted, like they really wanted Hank to live. And to me, I felt like Hank's death was the most freeing way for him to end. Like I couldn't see any other way that he would walk away from that and be fine, because he not only accepted, to me the biggest part is that he accepted that he played a part in Cristobal's death. He accepted wholeheartedly to Fuchs that he was, if not the reason, a very big proponent in his one love dying. And only through that admittance did he find death, which was also what ended up bringing them back together, which is kind of shown with that final shot of him laying on the statue, which is very sad, but I feel like it was a perfect kind of, it sounds morbid, but bittersweet ending to his character. And the other shot that I really loved, and I'm glad I actually rewatched season 1 with Gilda when I went to Auburn, because I'd been wanting her to watch the show, and we just watched all of season 1 together when I visited Auburn. There's a shot at the very, very end when Barry is shot by Gene, and Gene is sitting there on the couch, and Barry is slumped over with like a bullet hole in his head. And it's like completely stoically, Gene is just sitting there like normally, and it is a almost direct copy of the very first shot of the show, where Barry, the very first shot of the show opens on a dead body laying in bed with a gunshot wound to the head, and you see Barry walk in and like into frame, and he's very stoic, and he's like taking apart his gun and putting it into a case, and he walks out. And it's almost like the roles have been switched now, and everything that Barry has done throughout his entire life has led to this one moment where someone stoically killed him the same way that he has ripped away the lives of so many people throughout the entire series. And it felt like this moment of all these families and events that have happened and been ripped apart by Barry. It was kind of a big moment of revenge, not only for Gene because of what had happened to his girlfriend and everyone around him, it felt like a big moment of revenge for everybody. Because especially with season 3, where everyone was out to kill Barry. Like everyone tried to kill Barry, and that was really cool to me. But you kind of noticed that Gene was never like Gene tried to kill Barry at the very beginning of season 3, and then he had to play on Barry's side for the rest of the season to protect his own family. But now Gene is kind of taking up the role of killing Barry to serve as a way of revenge for everyone, and not only the series, but especially in season 3 that had tried and failed over and over again. And I thought that was fantastic.
I didn't know that it was so reminiscent of that opening scene, but you're right. I was trying to remember what it was, but when you start talking about Barry putting his gun together or taking his gun apart as he's leaving a scene, that's right. That is your introduction to him.
Yeah,
that's good stuff. A lot of the ending of Barry hinged on two people, and that's Fuchs and Cousineau.
Yeah,
Fuchs saves the day in a way. At least saves Barry's family.
He does, yeah.
Well, he saves Barry. And then, did you expect Fuchs to be kind of a minor hero?
I did not.
Yeah.
I really didn't. I kind of expected something to happen with their characters clashing. Mm-hmm. To me, also, Barry has been served, and this is why I love what they did with Fuchs, is Barry has been served so many chances to walk away from everything, and every single time he lets his own emotions get a hold of him, and it ends up messing up for him every time. We saw it at the end of season 3 when the detective that was his friend let him live, and he said, "Barry, this ends now." And Barry said that he would never do it again. Immediately, right after, went to Gene's house to try and kill Detective Moss. Or Detective Moss's husband. Or not husband, father. Jeez. But,
that's right.
Yeah. And it's the same way with Fuchs. Fuchs walked up to him, saved his entire family, gave him one more chance. He walked into the darkness like hero-like to give Barry this chance to go and be with his family. Sally again says, "Barry, you need to turn yourself in. This isn't right. Like, Gene is facing all these consequences now. That's it." Barry doesn't do any of that. And that's one of the funniest parts in the episode to me is Barry laying in bed with Sally, and Sally's like, "Barry, you have to turn yourself in." And Barry's like, "I think we should, I just don't think this is what God wants for me right now." It's like after he was like willing to die for his family, but now he won't even turn himself in. Like, he won't put his life down for the like rejoice of others. But it's just, I love the way every character called back to everything that has happened in Barry's life.
Yeah.
Everything with that was directed very well.
Barry does decide to turn himself in, but it's at the last second. Too late. And Cousineau ironically kills him, whereas if he would have left him alive, everything would have... Well, I don't know, everything would have worked out, but Cousineau would have not ended up in jail. And Barry would have been the one in jail. And that movie would have had a more appropriate ending, which I want to put that on the back burner for now.
I for sure want to talk about that.
I love that Fuchs ended up being a minor hero here because he loved Barry. And sometimes you were in doubt of that. But if you go back to season 3 when he was in, where was he? Romania? Czechoslovakia? Somewhere?
Yeah.
And he was on the phone constantly with Barry. And he had it made there.
He did. He had the beautiful wife
setting
who
doted on him.
The girl who loved him for no reason.
It just kills me. But he was constantly calling Barry like, "Hey, who can we go kill? You know, let's get back into it."
Exactly.
And it's because he loved Barry.
Yeah.
And so it's perfect that Hader decided to give us those shots of Fuchs and the young Barry, who looks exactly like John.
Yeah.
So it tracks. Fuchs may be the guy who grew up the most.
I think so.
In prison.
I think so. I absolutely love the shot of him stepping out with all the tattoos and everything.
Stephen Root
he's so great.
He's
character. I cannot imagine anyone else playing him.
No.
I really can't. That's what I think is great about these characters. I think every single character here is tied so perfectly to their actor or actress that I can't see them with anyone else. I can't see Bill Hader not being Barry.
Right.
Like he's Barry through and through.
Yeah.
And the same with Hank. Like, there's no one else. And even my brother made a good point that I can definitely see Hank's actor being typecast a lot with this kind of role because he's just so good at it that I can't see him as anything but Hank now. And I would love to see him get more roles because he really I think he really showed his acting chops this season and took off. Like, he was still a comic relief, but I think Bill Hader wanted to show everyone how great he could be in scenes. Like, that scene with Cristobal and them arguing is one of the most heart-wrenching of the entire series. Like, it is very sad, and it's great delivery by both of them in that scene.
If you don't pick up on the kindness of Hader in interviews, you pick up on it through his directing this season, because he gives everybody a chance to really say, here's your scene, to captivate audiences and show how good of an actor you are.
He seems like a great person overall.
He does. I've always heard that he is in interviews and things. I think something that also tracks for the show is, we'll now get into it, having it end with that Hollywood story of Barry's life, his teenage son, he's a few years older now, watching it and knowing that that's not how some of it went down, but also kind of seeming relatively satisfied in that last shot. Like,
it's a beautiful shot as well.
Yeah, it is. It says a lot without saying a word. John, the son's there. He sees how people are going to think of Barry, and he knows that's not as accurate in most of that stuff. But yet he's okay with it. There's a note there, I think, that audiences can't handle an ending unless it's happy to a degree. I think that's kind of
I wrote that exact thing.
Did
I wrote
you?
That exact thing, yes.
Hollywood would never tell Barry's real story.
Yeah.
But that's the funny thing is, the show Barry is telling us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think that's exactly what Hader was trying to say with this, not only this last part, but this entire season throughout, is how awful, like, as much as we get stories now that speak on the prospect of Hollywood and how kind of false that sense of security is a lot of the time, I think he has a very nuanced discussion on it, and I think he can pull it off very well by showing very human characters, like showing a son of a murderer and how their flawed story and changed story of Hollywood has completely changed his outlook on his own father and on the legacy that he's leaving on is very smart. And I thought that whole last movie itself was just hilarious. Like, I thought everything to do with it was just so funny, and it's so it literally is like a Fast and the Furious movie, like overplayed so much, and it's fantastic. And I thought, like, especially the, like, ending credits saying, like, Barry was laid to rest with the veterans. That was insane to me. Like, that is something that hit me so hard, and I was like, wow. Like, this is so perfect that Hollywood has not only twisted the story just, like, for their own beneficial gain, but someone who has caused so much pain to even the Marines around him that he vowed to never kill. I think of Chris and Taylor and other people like that. He is now laid to rest with those exact people that he has brought torment to. And in a way, I think that is his torment. And, like, I think that's kind of what Barry didn't want, because throughout the final 2 seasons, you see Barry travel to this place when he's near death, and throughout just random points, this beach, this afterlife, with all the souls that he's taken, and all these people are talking to him and, like, looking off into the distance. And I think Barry hates the fact, I'm assuming here, but I think Barry hates the fact that he has to live with all these people that he's killed over and over and over again, like reliving this memory. And now, for eternity, supposedly, he is stuck in a grave near the people that he has caused torment to, and near the people that he has taken with him. And I think he would have rather turned himself in than have Gene killed him there. I think it's a perfect ending. Yeah.
It makes sense. There's a beautiful, wonderful idea wrapped inside this little Hollywood onion of storytelling, especially brought to light this season, that parenting is also a performance. And that not only that, but that we all have roles we play in life. At home, I'm this person. Around friends, I'm someone else. It's an idea that's been around a long time, but pop culture hasn't explored it, I don't think, lately. I always remember that it happens in To Kill a Mockingbird, the book where Calpurnia mentions, I'm someone else at church. I'm someone else around my black friends. Sally does open up some. We talked about how she was a cold mom, but she does open up here, and I'm glad she gets that opportunity.
I loved that. Yeah, I really liked that.
Where she breaks down when they're in the garage or wherever as captives. Later on, she's a teacher, but she's much more of a mom, too, because she's doing what she's kind of meant to do, which is be an acting coach, drama teacher there at the school. But she's still got that little bit of selfishness.
Yeah, rejecting the man at the end, yeah.
Well, it's not just that, but, it's John says, can I go with my buddy?
Yeah.
And she says, yes, I love you. And then before she lets him leave, was the show good? Was the show did the play do well? And so there's still that sliver of selfishness in her, kind of like we think of Hollywood actresses to be and actors to be.
Yeah, I want to quickly mention, I don't think I've heard my family laugh harder at a TV show, especially Brady, my brother, you know him, than when Barry says, oh, wow, in his delivery.
Yeah, it's still funny.
It's so good, and right before he gets shot to, that being his final moment. And I also love, like, thematically that being his final moment as something so sudden and all of a sudden, because that's all he ever killed for.
That's
all he ever did. It was the entire time that he killed someone was all of a sudden. They didn't expect it. And I just love that his final words are, oh, wow, in such a comedic way. And not only because he hasn't seen Gene in forever, and he's surprised by his appearance, obviously, but also because he's holding a revolver to his head. And I think it's a great idea too that it's the same revolver that he failed to kill Barry with originally.
Yeah.
It's the same one that he was gifted that you see like the cylinder drop out of and you can hear the bullets like hitting the ground.
Gifted by Rip Torn, the actor.
Yeah.
Torn. It's just that detail is so funny.
It is.
This series was able to comment on parts of our society in a brisk way, but was also not superficial. Like, let me give you an example of this. Like, the scariest part of this finale to me was Barry being able to walk into a store, buy guns, and then that image of him walking out through the toy section was just scary. And then ending
my
up
dad loved that part.
Yeah, well, it's funny, but it's also scary.
Yeah.
Then he lets the camera kind of roll, so to speak, to show that he's getting in a car and there's like a Outback Steakhouse nearby. This is Everytown America parking lot. It's just
it is
scary.
It is
because it's true.
It is. It's very true. It's very true. And I love the fact that he walks out with literally like a full auto shotgun and a machine gun and a bandolier on his back and magazines and like everything. And it's so funny. Just Bill Hader is so smart for writing the simple word where he just walks up and says guns and that's it. That's all that needed to be said. There was no there was nothing else that needed to happen. And this show also commented on that earlier in a hilarious part in season 3 as well, where a mother and a son go up to buy a pistol to kill Barry, and they are in the gun shop talking about she was like, no, like, let me do it. Like, I'm going to do it, son. And he's like, no, let me do it. I'm seriously, like, I want to do this. And the gun store owner is just standing there, and he's like, I think we'll take the Glock. And he's like, all right, all good. Like, doesn't question it for a second.
Yeah.
Like that's also a wonderful part that has a similar message that I felt was just hilarious and played off of the theme very well.
Yeah. There was talk in season 2 and 3 is how much should we love the show Barry, because it's about a guy who uses guns, and it's during a time period where that was a topic of conversation is at the forefront. I think that maybe Hader and Alec Berg commenting a little or answering those questions.
I thought it was a fantastic finale.
Yeah. It was a really good finale. And it's like you mentioned at the top of the segment. Nothing surprising happened, but yet you probably couldn't have predicted a lot of it either.
Exactly.
Let's take a break. On the other side, we'll talk about the Netflix show I Think You Should Leave. If you're a book lover, no one has to tell you the wonder and excellence of a great book. But finding someone to talk about it? That's sometimes the problem. Well, not anymore. The best book podcast is here. Find Check Your Shelf. one Wednesday of each month on thealabamaTake.com or in any podcast app. You'll hear host Jamie Hanna and guests give a pleasant, insightful version of a book club as they cover notable reads every month. Subscribe where you get your podcast, or simply go to the Alabama Take and find Check Your Shelf. Ty, you and I were actually student and teacher, if anyone gives a crap. And in the mornings before school, we'd quote segments of the Netflix sketch show, I Think You Should Leave, to one another.
We would.
We want to dig into the most recent season, which is number 3 for the show. If anyone has doubts, I suggest that if you like crazy, absurd comedy, watch it. The episodes last 16 minutes or less.
Yeah, so quick.
They are quick. They're over before you know it. They feature 3 or 4 sketches per episode and are one of the few things on TV that make me laugh out loud.
Yeah.
Like literally, I'm laughing out loud. The show is I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson on Netflix. We'll definitely be spoiling the 3rd season shortly, like right now, in case you're wary of such with sketch comedy. I can see that. Before we spoilers quickly after this, but before we get into the specifics of season 3, did you watch any of Detroiters on Comedy Central?
I actually just figured out about it recently.
Yeah.
And I've heard it's good.
Yeah,
but
it's
I
pretty
haven't
good.
gotten a chance. I've seen some recurring actors because I visited the IMDb page, and I know that Tim Robinson and his best friend, I'm
Sam
forgetting his
Richardson?
name. Yes. And also there's another actor who's in it that is in Detroiters and in this newest season. He's the one that goes, "I'm mad at you." And he,
Connor
goes
O'Malley.
Yeah. Yes.
Connor O'Malley. It's on Paramount Plus. It probably still is. Last time I checked, since that's all part of the Comedy Central. Mm-hmm. They're all under the same umbrella. I've seen those. There's some really good episodes. I
definitely need to check it out because I love Tim Robinson and I'm itching for more of him.
It's nowhere near as absurd. It's still very funny though, especially some of the episodes. So let's talk about I Think You Should Leave with Tim Robinson. What'd you make of the recent season?
I laughed out loud at almost every single skit. I really thought every skit was great. And I thought every skit held up the theme of anxiety, which is shown so well in his first 2 seasons. From the very first season, first skit being he tries to pull a door open, he accidentally pulls it the wrong way, and then assures the interview person that he just had that no, it goes, and continues to pull until he breaks the door. I thought it kind of carried that same theme very well. And expanding on it, an overall point that we can get into later is I felt like this show often does kind of indulge in teaching a message at certain points, like with the Shirt Brothers skit where they feel like age is getting the best of them, or how you feel like talking about your kids can kind of overrun your life with that one sketch that I thought was fantastic. And again, there's also the absurd ones with the doggy door ad.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that one with like the strange creature.
That one I think is the one I connected with pretty deeply. That's why I connect with this show and comedy of this ilk. It plays with this philosophical idea of absurdism, where there's no rhyme or reason to existence, and there's some nice existential peppering in there. We're responsible for our own lives and what happens there. But you're talking about that sketch where it's the dog door commercial, which pivots to Tim Robinson's character being attacked by what he thought was a monster. And then
it's a horrifying monster too. It's very scary.
Very. And then there's the minor pivot within that where he acknowledged that the monster's just a pig in a Richard Nixon mask. But here's where it really solidifies as great comedy to me, is that it ends with him saying he sort of wishes it was a real monster and that he was dead because he didn't want to go to work that day.
Yeah. And he's like, if the first thing you're thinking when you're about to get eaten away by a monster is I don't have to go to work tomorrow, there's something seriously wrong with you.
But doesn't he admit to
he does. Yes, he
that?
does. He does. Oh,
that's so perfect.
Good.
All of those things you're talking about, the anxiety, the embarrassment in public, this absurdist. I mean, being alive's absurd.
Yeah.
The fact that
Absolutely.
we came to be is just a really insane concept. And I don't know, he just really gets into that so well. Not that it's never been done before, but Tim Robinson's so good at doing that, but as also managing to just yell a lot.
He has such a good delivery. And like I'm someone who does not find yelling funny. I don't think just because you yell something
Yeah.
loud it makes it funny.
Yeah.
But he is such a big exception for me because his voice, his facial expressions, and the way that he can change his voice is so good. Like there's it's the very first sketch of this season where he's having an argument show, like a political debate show, which is also a very good way of critiquing political debates, where he's like, if you get mad at me or if you say something that I can't disprove, I'll get on my phone. And then literally like immediately screams, goes, ah, and just gets on his phone and slumps down in his chair and like locks up. It's so, and like there's no way that me and you can describe how funny the show is because of how good the delivery is.
Yeah.
It's the same with some things on Barry. It's just how Tim Robinson delivers these lines, and the other actors in the show is so good that I can't replicate it for the life of me.
Yeah. I don't think this season was quite as good as the previous two. What do you think?
I would agree. I think there are some sketches that have reached the top of my list. I think there's some that are up there for me.
Yeah.
But I do think the other two seasons were better. But again, like that's not to me, like that's okay because he's not only made two seasons that are fantastic, but this season is perfectly good and has great sketches throughout. But there are some that I found a little less funny.
Yeah.
I didn't find the one where his imagination is kind of like weird, like the one where he imagines like a volcano.
Really?
I found
thought that
like
was kinda
parts of
funny.
it funny. I found parts of it funny. I didn't find there was one where I thought kind of went on for too long. The office party one as being the final sketch where it just kind of it ended kind of abruptly to me and like not in a like punchline way where like the woman thought that her boss was mad at her. So she like kept trying to like ruin the cardboard cutout of him.
Oh, that
and
one.
stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was another one that didn't really hit me as hard.
Okay.
But like I think the driving crooner one is very
stupid,
good.
but it's so good.
I think the drive-through one where he tries to start the chain.
That's my favorite of the season.
I think that's my favorite.
It's such a good. You talked about a critique. It's a good critique of this nice culture, but then taking advantage of it as he speeds around.
Yeah.
And my other favorite one from this season was was Will Forte's appearance as a ponytail. He gets caught in the car.
Yes. That one's very good.
Because he kept wanting the ladies to send pictures of diarrhea to prove that he was in the bathroom. That is just too funny.
And I love the idea of not being able to talk about, like, I love, because Tim Robinson has done this again with something else where he takes, like, the point of the sketch is that there's a character, usually Tim Robinson, that takes a figure of speech very literally, extremely literally. And he does that very well. Like, there's a sketch where Jason Schwartzman is talking about his kids to a group of people, and he says, "Oh, if I get off about my kids again, someone just like stop me," and Tim Robinson just politely goes, "Okay," and that's it. And then he goes off and he like slightly mentions his kid, and you can hear Tim Robinson screaming in the background and trying to get everyone's attention, and then becoming so popular that everyone loves him, and he can't stop getting people to follow him around. It's just
But
so
he's
good
only
to me.
popular with like 4 or 5 really goofy guys. You do not want to be popular. That's pretty good.
And they're like, "What's the next thing we're gonna do? What's the next thing we're gonna do?"
Do you have a favorite skit overall from all 3 seasons?
Oh goodness.
Is it still the hamburger?
One that I quote with my friends a lot is the Dylan's burger, just because the perfect delivery of the "let me take a video of you saying you're gonna kill the president." It's just so absurd and so good. There's so many though. It's so hard to choose for me personally.
I would go with maybe, it's hard to choose, but maybe eating the hot dog in the sleeve.
That one's very good. And there's a classic too, the one where he's in the hot dog costume and he's like, "Come on,
Oh, yeah.
who did this? Whose hot dog car is
Right.
this?" That one's great.
So that's a meme these days. I wonder which
Yeah.
will become memes.
I have seen the one where he is getting attacked by the monster.
Okay.
And he's like screaming expletives like over and over again. I've seen that memed a couple of times on Instagram.
Yeah.
I've seen that thrown around a little bit. But it's so hard to choose a favorite. If I had to, it would probably be Dylan's Burger. That may be up there for sure. But there's just so many where Tim Robinson has fantastic delivery. And the drive-through one is definitely up there for me. That's a
good.
fantastic. And just honestly, one of the funniest parts about that one to me is when Tim Robinson like rolls up his window and looks straight forward when the guy's at his window. He's like, "Come on, why aren't you moving?" And he like honks at the car in front of him.
Or the fact that the lady orders the exact same thing: 100 pizzas, 55 French fries.
55 French fries. Yeah.
See it.
Oh my
If we haven't spoiled it already, or if you agree with us, I think you should leave it. So good. I hope they do more. I can see him.
I really do.
Deciding, I've milked it for what it's worth. I can see that. I haven't heard anything one way or the other, so that's not anything official. That's the end of our episode this week, though. We'll be back next week. Follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever podcast app you use. We're there. And you'll hear from us next week. We'll see everyone later.